welcome to the one and only Tszyu.
G'day guys, how are we? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, September 4th, 2023, and as always, great to have you along. I hope you had a good weekend. It was a little bit interesting. We had no footy down this way, so it was a bit of a long wait. Well, it's been a long wait for the AFL final to kick off this weekend, so looking forward to that. I can see some comments in there already. There are Asbot, Carl and Hayden. How are you, boys? What's that there, Carl? So the G'day Hope all as well. Looks like you and Ronnie had a good night at the awards. Yeah, mate, it was awesome. Before we get into everything, I'll give a bit of a recap over that. It was a really, really good night, and yeah, we had a ball, mate. Who else we got in there? So we got Hayden Harradine. How are you, Hayden? Welcome to the show, mate. Carl, the Hitman. Yes, Hitman Harding was in the intro. I still remember that like it was yesterday, jumping around the lounge room like an idiot. I think I was 15? I think I was. Maybe. Actually, I think it might have been the day before my 16th birthday, actually. That's how old I am, I suppose. What's that, 89? So, yeah, no, that was a memorable day, Carl. I'm sure you'd agree. And just one of those. Look, we've had quite a few of them, haven't we? Jeff Horn over Pacquiao, of course. George Kambosos over Teofimo Lopez. Almost had Troy Waters over Terry Norris. Of course, Jeff Fennick, who can forget all his exploits. So really, really, yeah, I love looking back at those highlights, Carl. And the good thing about getting back to the Hall of Fame on the weekend, really, really good to see a lot of those stars in the room, get to catch up with them, get photos, all that sort of stuff. So I'll give a bit of a recap about the night as well. I'm sure you'll all want to hear about it. Of course, there's the video. And actually, while I'm going, I'll get the... I'll bring up YouTube and see. I'll get the link and I'll put it in the description. So if you haven't seen it, then you got no excuse to jump on and have a look. Where are we? Boxing Deep Dive. So if you don't follow us on YouTube, make sure you jump on. Where are my channel? Sorry, guys, I should have been organised for this, shouldn't I? All right, so I'm going to grab the link, put it in the comments there, and hopefully it comes up. All right, so we've got D-Style in the house. How are you, D-Style? I'll be on the show this Friday morning, Australian time. I think it's Thursday, about 8 p.m. In the US. So any of you guys and girls out there that are watching this, first of all, follow D-Style. It's a great channel, really, really good content. A lot of guys that really know what they're talking about. So follow them, and as I said, make sure you check me out on there on the round table on Friday morning, Australian time. I'll go back through some comments here. Sorry, guys, I've missed a few here. There's a few of you guys and girls out there. Tommy B, how are you, Tommy B? And to everyone watching, of course. Frankie D, hello, mate. Love the show. Always look forward to it. That's great, Frankie. Really appreciate you saying that. And if you haven't been out there or on the show before or watched the show before, make sure that you put a comment, a question, whatever it might be in the comment section in the chat. Because, as I say every week, this is your show. I'm just here to host it and give my input. I know a lot of you guys go back and forth in the chat there, but any topic, anything that you want to bring up, there's probably a little bit to go through. There's a couple of shows on the weekend here in Australia and overseas we can talk about. A little bit coming up as well with some shows. So, but any topic, it doesn't have to be necessarily current. Anything that you want to discuss might be top 10s and champions and rankings, whatever it might be, fights from the past, any of having a go at me, any of our old videos to put up with dream fights, whatever. Hey, whatever it is, bring it on. All right, yeah, there's Asbot. Hello to you too there, mate. All right, Big J. I'm always, I've got to read your comments first before I put them up, I think, mate. All right, Big J. G'day, mate. Lots to discuss. Floyd Masson, first defence. Yes, we'll go over that, mate. IBO Cruiserweight title fight this weekend. Sky, yes, is that this weekend? I think it is, actually. Jai, of course, Hall of Fame. Sorry, I missed it, mate. You missed a really, really good night. As I said, I'll go over that in a sec. Can we keep it on Aussie boxing tonight? Bugger International, nothing going on anyway. You had footy, the league. I think the Storm won, didn't they? The mighty Storm. We love the Storm. I've got a confession to make about it. I love the Storm, but I never watch them, I must admit. It's always on the weekends when I'm watching footy. I do see how they're going in the results, but I must admit I don't actually watch them. But this time of year, I'll make sure I follow the mighty Melbourne Storm, and I'm sure a lot of you guys from New South Wales and Queensland will just love hearing that. Oh, yes, Big J. The girls did play, and the Blues actually had a win in the footy. They beat the Gold Coast Suns by a couple of points. I must admit, love what the girls do. I've got to admit, I don't really watch it. If the Blues are on, I'll have a bit of a look. But I do look at the results. Still footy, and the girls have a crack. Love watching them play, and they're getting better and better each year, just like with a lot of other sports, cricket, soccer, boxing, of course. Always getting better and better are the girls. And the way they crack in, I'm sure it's the same with the NRLW up there. Big J, the girls have a go, no doubt about that. All right, Carl, I love Jeff's style. It was awesome. And I know we went through a bit of a rough patch. This is Jeff Harding we're talking about, if you don't know there, guys. He went through a bit of a rough patch there for a while. But from what I hear, he's doing really, really well. And just a really underrated fighter, I think, in the scheme of things for Australian boxers, especially that performance. Now, I'm sure all you Aussies out there have seen it, but internationally, if you haven't seen the Jeff Harding, Dennis Andrews #1 fight, make sure you check it out. You thought Rocky was just a movie? Well, this shows that it was actually real life, because he came from, 11 rounds. He probably lost 10 out of 11 rounds and came back, stormed home in the last round to win the WBC, I think it was, light heavyweight championship. So we've got a few comments coming there. What's that one there, Carl? What's that with D-Style? Great interview with Jesus D-Style. Yeah, I actually missed that, sorry, D-Style, so I'll have to check that out. I think that was on a couple of days ago, so I'll make sure I get on and watch that one. Big J, speaking of Jeff versus Pac-Man, Top Rank Boxing had a Twitter question today. What's one loss you can't get over? Jeff versus Pac-Man was pictured. Our response, we put a response, it wasn't a loss, but the greatest of all time. And mate, I'm with you. I've said it countless times on this show. It was a close fight. It just so happened our man got the decision. Now, again, if you haven't seen my take on it, I did a watch your verdict on that fight, Jeff versus the Pac-Man. Went through every round. I put highlights up and I scored it. I had it 7 rounds to 5 for Jeff. Wouldn't have argued if it was a draw, or even if it was 7-5 for Pac-Man. But there's no way in hell it was a rip-off for Manny. I think over the years, it's got more and more legs from people that probably haven't actually watched it since then. They just sort of jump on the bandwagon. And I just feel really almost insulted for Jeff that would be questioned, because what heart that he showed in that fight. And I know probably 75% of Australians were probably barracking against, or fight fans, were barracking against Jeff that day, but you cannot take away from his moment of glory, winning the WBO welterweight championship. I was there in the crowd. It was an awesome day. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there were as well. And he had that day at Suncorp Stadium. Great venue for fights as well. A lot better than the AFL. I will say, I know we've talked about it before, a lot better than the AFL, like Marvel Stadium and these types of venues are too big. Suncorp was just right. I thought 51,000 or something. But, I'm with you there, Big J. It certainly wasn't I don't think, a rip-off. And speaking of Pac-Man, I know we're getting a little bit off topic here. We went at the Hall of Fame over the weekend. Nadal Skinny Hussein was inducted, of course. He infamously was denied a knockout win over Manny. I think it was 2005, I think it was. When he was blatantly, we were floored by a jab of all things, sort of jab hook sort of punch. And Manny went down like he'd been shot. I think he had nearly 20-odd seconds to recover. It sort of reminded me a little bit of the Liam Wilson fight, probably worse than the Liam Wilson fight, really, because it was blatant, it was cheating. And what makes it worse is, if you haven't again seen this out there, a lot of international, I'm sure it's been all over anyway, but Manny, Carlos Padilla admitted to cheating, and still nothing has come of it to this day, Big J. Nothing has come of it. And I know he's still dirty. He says he's not, but I can see it in his eyes when I speak to him that he's still filthy. And look, quite rightly so. But we won't spend all night on that. But Manny's got a bit of a nerve to carry on about that, I think, or all his fans have, when he was on the good end of the stick against another Aussie in Nadal Skinny Hussein. What have we got there? Yeah, we'll get to Eubank's win Asbot. I thought it was a really, really good win, actually. We'll get to that in a sec, mate. I'll go over the Hall of Fame first. Actually, we'll go through a few more questions, but we will cover that Asbot. Chris Eubank, really, really good performance from Chris Eubank. I thought he fought a really, really good fight, a lot better fight than the first one. But as I said, we'll get to that one. Actually, we'll get on to that now, guys, just so I don't lose track. I thought, as I said, it was a really, really good performance from Chris. I just had a gut feeling that, I won't say Liam Smith got lucky in the first fight because he turned up, he prepared, and he fought well. I think Chris Eubank or Chris Eubanks Jr., is it Eubanks? Eubank, really contributed to his own demise in that fight. I thought, of course, he had Roy Jones Jr. in his corner for that fight. And I thought instead of trying to learn from Roy and taking a lot of the things that he brought to the table when he was fighting, I think he tried to be Roy, and there's a massive difference. And that's what happens sometimes when you get trained by the a fighter that you admire. And of course, we all love and admire Roy Jones Jr. I think Chris Eubank tried to fight like him. And Roy Jones Jr., you cannot, it's like all the great fighters, you can never be them. So why try and fight like them? Take certain aspects from the way they fight, the way they prepare, all that sort of stuff, but don't try and be them. And I think Chris Eubank tried to be Roy Jones Jr. and paid the penalty. And I think it was a really, really smart move by his team and himself to say, okay, we're going to bite the bullet. And I'm not quite sure of the circumstances, and light me out there if you do know. But to let Roy Jones Jr. go, bring in Brian McIntyre, obviously a great, great trainer. And obviously got all the runs on the board. Brought him in. I thought he was a different fighter, and I think it really, really showed that in this fight, the Chris Eubank made it look easy. And all due respect to Liam Smith, I think his best days are behind him, but he was never in it. I think he was really, really outclassed, and I thought that Chris Eubank Jr. made no mistake about who the superior fighter is. Again, no discredit to Liam Smith for winning that first fight. But as I said, I think Chris Eubank really showed that he's a class above and got some good fights out there for Chris Eubank. I'm just really glad that he's got the right team around him now, because he's always had the talent, but he was just never able to. Well, I think he was one of those fighters, to be honest, that he ran the show, he was the boss, and he almost told his trainers what was going on and his team. I think knowing little about Brian McIntyre and what he brings to the table, I think it would have been the opposite. He would have said to Chris Eubank Jr., I come in, I run the show, and it really showed his performance. I thought it was a really, really good effort from Chris Eubank Jr. And as I said, I think he's got some big fights out there, so we'll see what happens. Carl, I'm hearing Tim talk about fighting Bud and Canelo. I hope he's not looking past Brian Mendoza. Yeah, well, let's hope that's the case, Carl, because that's fraught with danger. We've seen what Brian Mendoza's done to a few other fighters out there that he's fought. I don't sort of think so. I think there's nothing wrong with looking at guys like Bud and Canelo. Whether he gets them or not remains to be seen. But I think he's the type of fighter, and his team especially, would be not looking past that. They would have an eye on those fights, just like probably a lot of fighters do, have the eyes past that. But I'm pretty sure that he'd be looking at Brian Mendoza for now, just with a little bit of a glimpse over the the horizon at someone like Bud and Canelo. I don't see a Canelo fight happening, although we're seeing Jamel Charlo jump up. We now hearing talk that Bud Crawford might jump and fight Canelo. I would think that Tim at this stage probably is not a big enough name. I would think that Tim would 100% be looking at Bud Crawford. I think that's a more realistic fight. I know we've spoken at length, I think it was last week or the week before, whatever it was. And I think that the Bud Crawford fight is the way to go. I know he's got Spence next, and that's fine. I don't think the result will change. So I'm thinking that Tim will get past Mendoza, Bud will get past Bud will get past Errol Spence, and then we might have that fight maybe mid next year of Tim versus Bud, and then maybe the winner might be looking at Canelo Alvarez after that. Who knows? But or especially Tim. I'm not so sure Bud goes up, although he's talking it up. But if you look at what's happening, it looks like Canelo is looking at Jamal Charlo afterwards. Let's hope maybe it's David Benavides. I would hope that it would be Tim versus Bud once they get through with Spence and Mendoza respectively. And then we would have Canelo take care of Benavides, and then all roads lead to a super fight down the track. But it all comes down to money, and that's all that matters to these guys. And it's a business. Let's not forget that. We all love our 2 cents being fans, but at the end of the day, it's what makes sense at the right time. And but I think looking down the track, surely they would have to have this in mind as the ultimate scenario with PBC and Showtime and everyone involved. So we'll see. But to answer your question there, mate, I don't think he's looking past Mendoza. I think he's got a bit of an eye over the top, but he won't take his eyes off Mendoza. James Daly, how are you, James? Welcome to the show, mate. G'day, Lynden. Great to see Hussey, and congrats to Skinny. Yeah, mate, it was an awesome night. I'll quickly go over it before we go on. Look, obviously it was Skinny Hussein, although they spelt his name on the trophy wrong. Felt a little bit, but he didn't care. He laughed it off. But they spelled it, I think it's Nedal, and they spelled it Nadel. But anyway, I'm sure he can get it fixed or whatever, get the plaque changed. But no, really, really good night. So Skinny Hussein got inducted. Daniel Gear, never actually met Daniel, and to be honest with you, on the night I didn't get to meet him either. I saw him at a distance, but there was so much going on. Everyone was around, so I didn't actually get a chance to talk to Daniel or meet Daniel. Of course, Jason Maloney, great night for him being Boxer of the Year. Sat next to Andrew Maloney, came down for all, which was awesome to catch up with him. It was Kevin Bones Kelly. There was Gary Cowburn was another one. I didn't really know much about him, I will admit, but I caught up with his daughters a bit later on. Really, really lovely ladies they were, and told me a little bit more about it. Actually, and with that, I actually caught up with an ex-Australian teammate, Henry Collins. It was great to catch up with Henry. If you don't know Henry, really, really great fighter from the early 2000s. Represented Australia at the 2000 Sydney Olympics. I think he was only 20 or 21 or something when I was sort of going around. And I went to a couple of lesser tournaments with him overseas, but he got to Sydney in 2000. I was long gone by then. And it's great to catch up with him. Haven't seen him for, 25 years. Hadn't changed, really. Like the rest of us, got a little bit more of a belly, but overall hadn't really changed. So that was great. And just catching up with Bomber Peden and Hussey, of course, the same. It was just a great night. Barry Michael. I saw Lester Ellis there, of course. He was there to take the induction trophy for his late brother, Keith. And I'm really glad that Keith Ellis got acknowledged. Keith Ellis was, if you don't know, was just an absolute character of Australian boxing, and the guy was a master trainer. This guy had never boxed before, hadn't really come from a boxing background. This family, Ellis family, came from England when they were all young. I think Lester might have only been 6 or 7 or whatever it might have been. It might have even been younger. And they came over from England, took up boxing. Keith said, "Well, I'm gonna train you myself," and took him to a world title and many other massive fights. So, he was a real character. Had some great fighters in the day. Ramrod Carr, Nathan Sting. I remember Cliff Samarden. If you're not familiar with Cliff Samarden, this guy could have been anything. I think he had 23. He was undefeated in 23 or 24 fights, whatever it was. And Lester just had to put a dig in there that he left Keith to go to Jeff Fennick, and then was knocked out in his next fight and was never seen again. But we've all got egos in the sport, haven't they, at that level? But no, it was great to see him acknowledged, and I'd met him a few times, and he called a spade, no doubt about that. Had the best one-liners in the business, and really, really happy for the Ellis family that Keith Ellis was inducted. Forgive me if I've forgotten anyone, but just a really, really good night. So, what else we got there? Back to Chris Eubank and Liam Smith. Liam Smith got paid off to set up the two sons to fight Connor Ben and Chris Eubank. Well, I don't think Connor Ben deserves anything at this stage, to be honest, Carl. But look, you never know. The way he fought, you'd probably maybe think that, wouldn't you? Because it wasn't the same Liam Smith we saw in the earlier fights. Although, as I said before, I think Chris Eubank had a lot to do with that as well. Kyle Champion, how are you, Kyle? Good evening, Lynden. Liam Smith says he struggled to make weight at 160. Is it safe to rule him out fighting at 154? Yeah, I did see that, Kyle. Now, that's a really funny comment, because he was fighting at 154. I think as recently, was it last year or the year before? It's not like he's jumped from, or he's been at 160 the whole time. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll bring him up as we're speaking there on BoxRec. Maybe I'm wrong. But I didn't know he hadn't been fighting at that weight for quite some time. So I'll bring him up as we're going there, and we'll see. All right, we can see there. All right, so he weighed 159. Oh, okay, so he weighed 155 back this time last year. So 155 and 154. So he's only had 2 fights. This is his second fight at middleweight, and it's Chris Eubank in both of them. So I'm not quite sure what he's getting at there. Look, I would say maybe when the dust has settled, maybe we'll find out that maybe he could make the weight okay. Just got beaten by a better fighter. What do we got there? Hang on. I've got a comment there. Where do we go? Oh, hang on. I've gone past you. Where are we? I'll go back there. Mark Wynn. Sorry, Mark. G'day, Lynden. Long time lurker. First time to say anything. Well, mate, hey, anything you want to say, Mark? I really appreciate you logging on there, mate. But anything you got to say or comment or topic, make sure you bring it up, mate. We're all friends here, virtual friends. What else have we got there? Yeah, but back at that comment there, Kyle. Yeah, I don't believe that. I just think it's maybe all these elite fighters always sort of tend to have a yarn to tell after the fight when they've been beaten, that maybe they were injured or couldn't make weight or whatever it might be. They didn't get enough sleep the night before. I don't know. I think he just got beaten by a better fighter, Kyle. So, but if that is the case, then there's no way he's going back to 154. I think guys like Tszyu would absolutely eat Liam alive, to be honest with you, Kyle. I hope Batman Boxing's on in there. He might differ with me, but yeah, I think probably a good thing to stay at 160, or maybe even look at retiring. I think he's at that point of his career. What is he? I haven't got his record there, but had a lot of fights now, so maybe time to call it a day. But I wonder as well how Tim's going, keeping his head screwed on with all the crazy recent success and elevation. I reckon Costa would be in his ear. Yeah, I think the main thing, Asbot, to be honest with you, is that regardless of what maybe in Tim's head, he's probably got the most or the best team around him to keep him grounded. Now, he's got his uncle Igor as trainer. He's got Glenn Jennings as his manager. They're no-nonsense guys. They've both been around the scene when Costa was at his peak, and I don't think they would allow Tim's head to get too big or Nikita's head to get too big. I could see Igor or even Glenn giving him a bit of a clip saying, wake up to yourself. And I just think that's the difference. And that's what I said earlier about Chris Eubank Jr. I just think, and he's not the only one. They get it in their head that they're running the show. And I know they are the boss, I suppose you call it. It's their organisation that they're running. But you employ the best trainers, the best managers, the best promoters to do this work for you, to make your job easier. So all you got to do is train and fight. I've got a feeling that Chris Eubank was playing a little bit of the CEO and paid the price. And now I would think like Brian McIntyre reminds me a little bit of the Freddie Roaches of the world and Robert Garcias of the world, where they're the boss. And if you don't want them to be the boss, they'll shake hand, wish you all the best, and they'll send you on the way. If you go to them, they run the show. You've entrusted them with your preparation. So if you don't want to take our advice and do what we want, then see you later. I've just got a feeling that Roy Jones, again, I'm not 100%, of course, I wasn't there, but the impression I got from watching that, it was that, yeah, just the attitude difference that I saw on the weekend from the first fight to the second fight. You could see the influence of Brian McIntyre. So, what have we got there? Carl again. Yep, read up Jeff's story. Talk about a sad story. Glad that he was doing good. Yeah, that's Jeff Harding. Yeah, a bit like Graham Spike Sheeny, Carl. Went through a little bit of a rough try. Again, one of our great national treasures, I suppose. Silver medalist at the Olympic Games in '88. Didn't reach the heights as a pro, but certainly had some big fights in the pros as well, but just never really made it. And that's a different story. There's no guarantee that if you're a good amateur, you're going to make it as a pro, and vice versa. So and I did hear that he'd fallen on some hard times too, Carl. But from what I hear, he's doing okay now. All right, D-Style. Okay, the Horn Pacquiao. This is from a neutral observer over here. I scored Horn versus Pac a draw last time I saw it. Well, mate, certainly not going to argue with that. So I think you obviously agree with me that, the call it a rip-off. It gets more legs every year that we go on. Seems like everyone jumps on board. And it started off as a bit of a, Teddy Atlas is to blame for this, by the way. Started off as a bit of feedback from certain people like Teddy Atlas or fans, and over the journey, it's just got more and more legs. So it's like Nelson Fennick, the first fight where Jeff probably won 9, if not 10 of the 12 rounds and got blatantly ripped off. That's what it feels like. But it was a close fight, a lot of close rounds. And got to remember, Manny didn't turn up for the first 5 or 6 rounds. Just wasn't there. He allowed Horn to muscle him, push him back, dominate the scoring. I think I might have given Jeff 5 of the first 6 rounds. And I know a lot of people say that the 9th round was a 10-8 round. I don't see it that way. Watch that round with the sound turned down, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Jeff was more exhausted. Manny didn't really land any big punches. Yeah, he had sort of Jeff on the back foot backing up, but Jeff, it was more about just a little bit fatigue. I thought rather than anything really that Manny threw at him. That's my opinion. As I said, turn the noise down, turn the commentators and crowd down, and you can see that Jeff was just a little bit on the defensive for the whole round. That's all. So I certainly didn't score that a 10-8 round, and I thought he won the last 2 or 3 rounds after that. So there you go. Anyway, Batman, how are you, mate? Welcome to the show. What's that, D-Style? We're listening in during my jog, late night jog for me. Hey, whatever turns you're on there, D-Style. Yeah, what's that? Probably 2 or 3 in the morning over there. You're a better man than me, mate. Hayden Harradine says Crawford said Jeff won. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people won. I think a lot of fans said he won at the start. Now, I actually think the first Timothy Bradley fight, I think that was a rip-off. I was actually at that fight and couldn't believe the decision when I heard it. I thought Manny won probably 8 rounds to 4 and got beaten, of course. Now, to me, that was a rip-off. I haven't really heard anyone come out, fans or experts, if that's what you want to call them, come out and say that Timothy Bradley won that fight. I think that was conclusive, but it was a close fight. And sometimes just because your favourite fighter doesn't win doesn't mean it was a rip-off. So, yeah, if you're out there saying that, put your head in there, guys. Carl, I think Jeff fighting dirty won him the fight, to be honest. Hats off to the lad. Well, I think he just fought the way he had to, Carl. Look, yes, there probably could have been a few more warnings, but look, there are some fighters out there that just, I won't say they're dirty, but I mean, I don't think Jeff was deliberately leading with his head, although he tended to. I don't think he was deliberately trying to headbutt him. Yeah, there's a few shoulders and a few elbows in there, but hey, it's professional fighting. This is professional fighting. If you look at a lot of elite fighters, not just elite, but professional fighters, you'll see them sometimes. They'll dig an elbow in when the referee's in the blind spot. They might throw a low blow in there if they're a little bit hurt, just to get it's the first offence. They'll only get a warning from the referee, but it still gives them 6 or 7 seconds to get a little bit of clarity back. So there's all these tricks of the trade, and there's a lot of dirty, well, we'll call them dirty fighters out there. I don't think Jeff was dirty. I think that's just the way he fought. He's very, let's just say, unorthodox. He'll lead with his left, he'll lead with his right, he'll lead with his left knee, his right knee, whatever. That's just the way he fights, Carl. I don't think he deliberately tries to be dirty. I think just the fact that the way he comes in can sometimes lend to maybe a headbutt or a shoulder or whatever it might be. But I don't think he does it deliberately. Although if you ask the anti-Jeff fans, they'll tell you the opposite. But anyway. All right, a few more comments there. What do we got? Kyle Champion. Jeff was labelled by Dan Raphael as a false champion. The US never let that decision go against Pac-Man. Mate, 100%. They didn't. 100%. They just will not let it go. And that's why it's good to see someone like D-Style there, who's a totally non-biased observer. He's American. Sees it through non-Australian eyes or non-Filipino eyes, and tells it the way it is. Dan Raphael, to be honest, I've actually met the guy before. We were over there with the Maloney twins for a camp that we did over there, and we actually met him. He's a flog. Big fat flog. That's all he is. I don't want to have a go at anyone about their appearance, but how can someone be talking about an effort like that from Jeff Horn when he's the size of a bloody house and probably never had a fight in his life, let alone never been in a gym? So I take what he says with a grain of salt. Teddy Atlas, on the other hand, obviously been there, done that, massive background. I thought I was really dirty on Teddy for being that vocal, because I think he said it a little bit on the spot. But I think if he sat back and took a little bit more look at that, he would probably regret a lot of those comments, because he's been the fire starter of a lot of this. So I think if he sat back, he would realise, being a boxer himself and a trainer, of course, the amount of work that Jeff would have put into that fight, the effort that went into that fight. I think he would give Jeff his view. Now, he might still think Manny won, and that's fine. But the way he carried on after that fight, really, he lost me after that. He really lost me. I know he lost a lot of Aussie fans after that as well. But you're right there, Cole. A lot of the, I won't say, well, a lot of US fans, I will say that, but definitely the Filipino fans, they haven't forgiven Australian, Jeff and Australian boxing after that, have they? So, anyway. What have we got there? Zygmunt. How are you, Zygmunt? Actually, I've got a comment there if I missed one. I always get my wife to. Oh, yeah, that's you there. All right, what do we got? Hey, Lyndon, it was great to see all your interviews with all the boxing legends from the Hall of Fame night. I watched the Wildfighter stream Saturday. Max Reeves looked fantastic. Yeah, it was. I haven't actually seen it back yet, Zygmunt, but I spoke to Will Tomlinson today, the promoter of Wildfighter, not Wildfire, Wildfighter, and yeah, he was really, really happy with the night. I think they had about 1,500 in the house, which is a great crowd for Melbourne. And he said the pay-per-views were through the roof as well. So, look, I think, and we spoke about it today, Will and I think it's an example of if you put on really good fights and you invest in good fights, then people will pay the pay-per-view. And Will said, I won't give you the numbers. Don't want to disclose that. That's up to him to disclose. But he did say they were a shitload better than a lot of the other ones he had because every fight was a really, really well-matched, even fight. And you're right about Max Reeves. He did look good. I only saw the highlights of the fight, I will admit, Zygmunt. But I think that's a classic example that fight fans out there, if it's a good card, people will pay up for it. And I think his pay-per-view was $30, so it wasn't cheap. And he had a really, really good turnout. I think you've got to look at Anzo DiCarlo up in Queensland. Look at Tasman Fighters up in Queensland as well. A lot of other promoters around the country could maybe take a note or a leaf out of that book or whatever they say. If you put on good fights, good evenly matched fights, you're going to get a good crowd in the house and you're going to get a good pay-per-view audience out there. So, but yeah, I spoke to Tszyu Brown on Saturday night too, Zygmunt. He got the fight for Joe Corner against Max Reeves. He had to take off. He's only there for like an hour, I think. Poor old Tazzy. I think he had to scoff down his food and he cut out of there. But yeah, Joe Corner, he's a good fighter. I've promoted Joe a couple of times. Went in there, gave it his all. But Max Reeves, of course, had the win over Jade Mitchell, the technical win. I think it's still a win. I'm not sure. I think Jade said on Saturday night that might be overturned, but it hasn't at this stage. But yeah, I think he's a really good prospect, Max. Actually, on that card, we'll have a quick look at it. Joel Taylor with a 10-round split decision over Cesar African. The scores were 97-92 times 2, which I heard was maybe a little bit lopsided, a lot closer than that. And then the other judge, Chadwick, had it 95-94. So what I'm hearing from people is that the knockdown was really, really close. The knockdown definitely swung at Joel Taylor's way, but a lot of people said if it hadn't been for that, it could have gone either way. So, yeah, but Cesar African, he'll be back. He's only a young guy. Joel Taylor's pretty seasoned. He was obviously, he was, had something to prove as well. He lost a decision to Ben Horn in a real upset in his last fight. So he wanted to prove something. He'll make a statement, as they say. So he defended the Australian welterweight title against Cesar African. So African, I think that's how you pronounce it. But as I said, Cesar will be back. Good young kid. He's only had 7 fights now. So plenty of time. And that was Joel Taylor's 11th fight. We just mentioned Max Reeves and Joe Corner. That was a 4th-round stoppage for Max Reeves. He moved to 9-0-1. Joe Corner dropped to 6-3-1. Jason Malia, really high on this kid, managed by Mike Altamura, probably the best in the business in Australia. He won a 6-round decision over Hunter Ione. I think that's how you pronounce it. He dropped to 8-8-1. It's an interesting record, Hunter. Won his first 8 fights and he's lost his last 8 fights. But that's to do with just really stepping up the competition. One of those guys you love, fights anyone, anywhere, anytime. So a promoter's dream, because you need those guys that turn up and always give effort, and you can get them at short notice. So, yeah, I'm hoping he got well paid. Will, if you're watching, make sure you look after Hunter, because we need guys like him around. The other fights, just quickly, Caitlin Beckett and Chloe Chaos fought a draw. Jordan, how do you pronounce that? Jordan Rosler stopped Lawrence Nosp in the 2nd round, and Stephen Finlay and Heath Graham fought a 4th-round draw. So that was the Wildfighter show. So again, congratulations to Will. That's a great crowd, 1,500 for Melbourne. That's really good. All right, who else we got there? Here he is, the Ronnie Picken, my partner in crime. How are you, Ronnie? Hall of Fame dinner Saturday night was a good reminder, looking at the highlights of how good our past and present boxers on the world stage were and continue to be. Mate, it's a great point. I must admit, I probably don't go right back to the turn of the century or probably the first 30 or 40 or even 50 years of boxing. A little bit, of course, we know the greats, but I don't know a lot about a lot of those early guys. And to see, I think they have a couple of different categories. They have, actually, I can't remember what the categories are, but they go right back to the 10s and 20s of the Australian boxers. And we've got guys that fought for the, I don't know what it is, but the Australian version of the world title. I don't know how that works, but it was the Australian version of the world title. I suppose it's our idea of the sanctioning bodies these days. There's the world title, and then there's the Australian version and the English version, and who knows. But they have all those guys, and it's really great to see. They have highlights of them on stage. They might have descendants of them come up and accept trophies or awards and speak about the fighters. But it goes to show the quality of boxers that we've had over the journey. And of course, they go right through to the 50s, 60s, 70s. And even looking at guys like, I must admit, Kevin Bones Kelly, inducted. This is, if you're an American, this is not the American Kevin Kelly. This is, of course, the Australian version. Fought for world titles. Who did he... Just trying to think, guys, who... I'll just have a look and see who it was that he fought for the world title. He fought for... Where is he? See if I can bring him up there. He fought... It was for the world title. Sorry, guys. David Reed. David Reed, who won the gold medal, the Olympics I went to in 96. He won the gold medal there. Well, Kevin Bones Kelly fought him in Atlantic City. Lost the unanimous decision, but, that's who I didn't even really know that, to be honest. Retired with a record of 27-8-4. A lot of those losses come late in his career. But beat Sam Solomon, of course, a world champion. So, anyway, but so many great fighters. As I said before, Gary Calburn, really great to learn about him. And then you look at each year, you wonder who else they're going to bring through. Like I said, Skinny Hussein fought Manny Pacquiao, and Hussey last year, of course, he fought Jorge Arce, and all these guys. Just so many to go through. Looking at highlights of Robbie Peden and Lester Ellis and Barry Michael, Jeff Harding, you name it. Jeff Fennick, of course, Les Darcy. Just great to see the highlights. And Ronnie, I think I've answered your question there. It's just great to see all those fighters in attendance. And I think you'll obviously see in the few years coming up, even some females being inducted. I think Shannon O'Connell will be on the list. Susan Ramadan, of course, will be on the list. So some really great fighters being inducted. Sharon Anyos was actually inducted last year. So, yeah, I'm with you, Ronnie. Just a really, really great night of boxing nostalgia, I think, mate. And to catch up, not that I drink too much, but it was good to have a drink with some of the guys and just catch up. So, but I hope you enjoyed the video out there, guys, because I really enjoyed making it. Batman, what do you got there, mate? That's a comment to Carl. His claim the weight, I think Eubank was better than he showed in the first fight. Actually went back to his aggressive combination style. Yeah, you agree with me there, Batman. This is about Chris Eubank Jr. Of course, I just think it had all to do with Chris Eubank coming a lot better prepared physically, mentally, and tactically. And I thought he just broke Liam Smith down. So I'm not quite sure, Batman. Do you still want Liam Smith for Tim Tszyu? Because I think if he fights Tim Tszyu, mate, that's not going to be a great night for your man Liam Smith, I don't think. I think if Chris Eubank did that to Liam Smith, I would shudder to think what Tim Tszyu would do to him. But you never know. Jules, how are you, mate? Evening all. Lyndon, good to see you put up all right after Saturday night. Some nice content from the Hall of Fame. Thanks, mate. As I said, it was a really, really good night of catching up with everyone and the interviews. I hope you like it. A little bit hard at some stages. Last year, there's a lot more gaps to get a hold of people. This year, they had a lot to get through, so I only had a few minutes of time to get to all these guys. I actually missed out with Daniel Gill, which I was not happy about. I would have loved to have gotten a word with him. I think he was the only one I sort of missed. I did talk to Barry Michael, but it was early in the night. I didn't have a chance to interview him. And it was good to see actually Barry in good spirits. He's had a really, really rough year with the unfortunate passing of his wife. And good to see Barry there. And as I said before, Lester Ellis was there as well. And overseas, if you didn't see it as well, Mike Tyson used to say Lester Ellis is one of his favourite fighters. So if you're not familiar with Lester Ellis, make sure you check him out on YouTube. A great, great champion in his day. Won the IBF World Junior Lightweight or Super Featherweight, whatever it's called, 130-pound title back in 1985. 19 years of age, if you can believe that. Had only been boxing for 7 years. And he'd gone through the amateurs and won a world title at 19 years of age. So, the Master Blaster, make sure you check him out. Oh, Carl, there you go, mate. Got my Jason Maloney shirt today. That's awesome, mate. I will say with Jason Maloney too, geez, he spoke well on Saturday night. Such a down-to-earth, humble guy. They both are. And I know it would have been difficult for Andrew to be there, with Jason getting a lot of the accolades, but the boys have such a relationship together. Just a bond and, whatever you want to call it. I mean, twin brothers, of course. But really great to see the way that that Andrew was there to support Jason. But as I said, Jason, Jizzy spoke so well, thanked everyone, and just a really, really good speech by Jason Maloney. He took a heap of videos, gave me about 10 minutes of his time for an interview. So, it was great. I'm sure he'll be glad, Carl. And actually, that reminds me, and I haven't actually got it here. I bought a glove from the Hall of Fame, and we're going to do our first giveaway. Okay, so I'm meant to have it. I'll bring it on next week. It's a Hall of Fame boxing glove. Now, I've never done a giveaway on this show before. I'll see what else I can get my hands on. It's a glove, Hall of Fame glove signed by Jason Maloney. I think it has Skitty Hussein. I think Barry Michael, Lester Ellis, Daniel Gill. There's a few others on there. I think there might have been 6 or 7 signatures on it. I'm going to give it away on here. I've just got to work out how to give it away. We might do something like if you like and share on whether it be YouTube or Instagram or something like that. We'll work it out. But we're going to give our first giveaway. I've actually got some stuff from George Cambosis' fight in Melbourne last year as well that I might give away as well, and a few other bits and pieces. But glad you got it, mate. I'm sure he'll be glad that you've got a shirt for him, mate. All right, back to Eubank and Liam Smith. Asbot, not sure what was more profound, Chris Eubank's performance or Liam's lack of performance. Liam just wasn't there. No, he wasn't. But as I said before, Asbot, I just think Chris Eubanks had everything to do with it. You watch him this time, he threw punches in bunches, as I say, throwing 6, 7, 8 punches at a time and setting a really cracking pace. I think that was a big difference as well. If you look at the highlights of it, we don't have to go through the whole fight, but look at the highlights. Just combination after combination after combination. And when he had him on the ropes, he just did not let up. And I think probably Liam, with his age, the amount of fights that he's had, he's got a few miles on the clock now. I just don't think he could go with him. Did really well to hang on for 10 rounds, I will say, Asbot. But I think Chris Eubank, just with the tactics and the work rate, and just a whole different attitude, I think that played a massive part. And Liam Smith, unfortunately, this stage of his career, just couldn't go with Chris Eubank Jr. So maybe he could keep fighting with some good paydays out there, but I think that his time at the top has now come to an end. I know they're talking about maybe a rematch or a rubber match. I don't see the sense. I think Chris Eubank has proved that he's the better fighter, has got that win back. So I think he should move on, especially at his state of his career as well. Move on and go for some bigger paydays out there. Carl, the Business of Boxing won that fight on the weekend. Which one's that, mate? Enlighten me. Sorry, I might have missed that one. Glenn, how are you, Glenn? Good move. Roy Justin doesn't seem to be a good coach. Bomac is a good Zoe. He certainly is, mate. And look, that's obviously not having a crack at Roy Jones Jr. He's an absolute legend of the sport. Great fighter, great personality. But end of the day, as the old saying goes, just because you're a great fighter doesn't make you a great trainer. For different reasons, could be a lot of different reasons. You don't actually see, when you think about it, a lot of really elite fighters or legends of the sport become good trainers. I'm trying to think of some. I really can't say. I think Mark Breland's a really, really good trainer. Commonwealth Games gold medalist, WBA welterweight champion back in the day. But I think the ones you see is the really good trainers are the ones that have been professional fighters, but we're all sort of maybe fringe fighters. And I've had this chat with Freddie Roach before. So Robert Garcia is a little bit different. He was obviously a former was at IBF, was he 130 pound or 126? I think Robert Garcia obviously translated into that. I think he's a better coach than he was a fighter. But with Freddie Roach, he laughs about it. He was just a fringe contender, club fighter. He had a lot of fights back in the day. Freddie, I remember watching him on ESPN Friday night fights back in the day on Sky Channel. That's how long ago that was. But just a great trainer. And that's what I always say. You don't have to be a great trainer, a great fighter to be a great trainer. You just have to be around elite gyms, elite fighters, elite trainers, elite whatever in the sport. And that makes you, I think, a good trainer. What else have we got there? Carl. calling out Triple G was laughable. Yeah, well, is Triple G going to fight again? I think Triple G puts a beat down on Eubank, but geez, I tell you what, if he's going to think about fighting Triple G, now's the time. I've just got a feeling, Carl, that we might have seen the last of Triple G. He's given up his titles now. I'm not sure there's a big enough fight out there for him. Maybe Chris Eubank, maybe if it's in England, would have the money to make. But that fight in America is not, I don't think, would sell. The Canelo thing's done and dusted. I don't know. I'm not sure, Carl. As I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen the last of Triple G. I hope not. Actually, I'll take that back. I would almost be good if he retired now. I don't want to see him come back and fight some of these young lions that are on the march looking for a scalp. I would hate to see that. I think too much of Triple G. And I know his standing in the game is discussed a lot or debated a lot about his standing in history. Not his fault that a lot of the really good fighters of his time didn't want to fight him. And why would you? He was a killer when he was at his peak. And it wasn't until he's probably just at his peak. I think the first Canelo fight was, and after that, he really did wind down after that. I mean, he was lucky to get past Murata, and the last Canelo fight, that wasn't Triple G. So, I hope he retires, Carl. Glenn agrees. Triple G, Chris Eubank would be a big money fight in the UK. Yeah, as I said, mate, that's probably the only place I could see that fight just having enough money to generate for Triple G to come back. Let's see. If Triple G fought Chris Eubank in the States, probably wouldn't make a lot of financial sense because, it might be a $2 or $3 million payday in it for Triple G, but if they did it in England, we all know they get 50, 60,000 people to their big events over there. Who knows, it could be a $10 million payday in it for him, and all of a sudden it's enough to get him out of retirement. But I'm not a fan of Eubank Jr. at all. I would hate to see Triple G come out and be beaten by Eubank if that happened and have to live with that forever. I just think too much of Triple G. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Glenn, I just want Triple G to go off into the sunset. He's, 41, 42 or something now. A lot of hard fights. Let's move on. And yes, Asbot, 100%. Triple G is getting on a bit. More than a bit, Asbot. I think he's well and truly past it. So, and Carl agrees, just a little bit, Asbot. A few miles on the tyres. There certainly is. All right, what do we got there? Hang on, we got a scoop from Carl. Hang on, what do we got? I've heard May the 4th, Canelo versus Benavides, but hey, that's just talk at the moment. While they're also talking about maybe Jamal Charlo being next for Canelo. Carl, I don't buy the Jamal argument or the rumours. I think that would be such a massive or hard sell to sell Jamal Charlo if Canelo gets a job done on Jamal Charlo. I think it'll be a really, really hard sell, especially the fact that Jamal has been out for 800 days and counting now, apparently over 800 days and counting. Still no sign whatsoever of fighting and defending his WBC middleweight title. But hey, we'll keep him as champion. He's got mental health problems, so we'll just let him be champion for as long as he wants. And I said last week, I'm happy to debate with anyone. Just because you've got issues outside the ring doesn't give you the right to hold up the title. Now, if he's got mental health problems or other issues, get all the help that you need, all the support that you need. No issue. WBC, give him whatever you need outside the ring to get him right and help him get right. That's great. He's one of your champions, but put him in champion recess and let some other guys fight for the belt. So I don't think that's going to happen, Carl. The Canelo-Benavides fight does make sense. Now, I know Canelo cops a lot for people saying he's ducking Benavides. I just think he's waiting for the right time. Remember, it's a business. We always talk about it. I think that Canelo's waiting for Benavides to get a couple of more fights under his belt. So it's a better sell. Now, as boxing fans, we all want it. It's one of the biggest fights in boxing and all the rest of it. We're going to all slag off Canelo for not taking the fight. We're going to call him ducking. Guys like Canelo don't duck fighters. I've said this numerous times on here. When you're at that level, you don't duck other elite fighters. You might not fight them at a particular stage that boxing fans want you to. That's not ducking. That's a business decision. Now, I would think he wants Charlo. Not probably the fight I would have taken if I was Canelo because it's another tough sell, 154 to 168 and everything else. It's going to be hard if he wins. It's really hard to justify that to a lot of the casuals out there. I think Jamal Charlo has a massive chance to win that fight. But anyway, it's a hard sell. But I would think if Benavides, I think is he going to be fighting Boo Boo Andrade? I think that might be the next one. Let him fight him. Maybe get one more fight in before them, or at least the Boo Boo fight anyway, or Andrade fight, and then maybe May the 4th. I think if he beats Andrade, that's enough of a signature win. He's had the Caleb Plant fight. That will almost be enough, I think, for Canelo to take a look at him. And of course, that's Cinco de Mayo weekend, of course, the first weekend in May. So it might be a rumour, Carl, but that to me is a believable rumour. It would not surprise me at all to see Benavides fight Andrade and Canelo fight Charlo, and the winner of both of those fights fight next year. Or maybe Andrade. I'm not sure Andrade's the type of fight that Canelo would want at this stage of his career. High risk for not a lot of reward. So I think he'll be hoping that Benavides gets past that and they can fight in May. Worst case, next September, I would think. Maybe they have one more fight before then. So I would think next year for sure, Carl. That's my gut feeling anyway. Glenn, you disagree. Canelo is not going to fight Benavides. As I said, mate, I think he will. When the time's right, he does say he's got 4 or 5 more years left in him, Canelo. I don't think that's the case. I'm thinking 2 tops. I would think next year in 2025, you would see, unless he gets stopped or beaten badly in one of those fights in that time. I would think he'll fight Charlo for this year's fight. I think he fights Benavides or someone else next year, and then depending on who's where in 2025. But I think he's got maybe 4 more fights left in him, and then that'll be it. But as I said, Glenn, I really think one of those will be Benavides, and I'm assuming by that you're a Benavides fan. I think you would think Benavides beats Canelo. I'm in the camp of Canelo. If it's within the next 12 to 18 months, Canelo, to me, wins that fight against Benavides. I know Benavides is a monster, but I think his style is custom made for Canelo, and I think Canelo beats him. I hope I haven't stirred the hornet's nest there, Glenn. I'll look out for another comment for you on the track. Let me know what you think. All right, Big J, back to the Hall of Fame. What do we got? How does the Fighter of the Year for the Hall of Fame work? Is it calendar year or financial year? Is it barely September, far too early to award Fighter of the Year? I know that they are playing catch-up at the moment, Big J, and that's why Saturday night went to about 11:30 and it was a long night. This was actually the 2021 Hall of Fame inductions, a little bit like last year when I went to the Canastota International Hall of Fame. They had 20, 21 and 22 or 19, 20, 20, whatever it was. It's 3 years anyway. And that's why I had to be there, because there's so many great fighters there. And if you haven't seen that too, that's here on YouTube. My journey to the Hall of Fame in Canastota last year to see Mayweather and Roy Jones Jr. and Hopkins and Mosley and Cotto and Marquez and you name it. They all got inducted. So Andre Ward as well. But on that, yeah, so that was for 2021. And I'm not sure the Fighter of the Year, Big J. That's a really good question. Maybe they just, well, I don't know, because if you think that if Tim Tszyu beats Brian Mendoza in October, he's already had 2 other fights this year, big fights. Does that really for this year mean that he would be the winner? I've got a feeling it might be financial year, I would think, because they like to do the Hall of Fame at this time of year. Of course, hard to do the Fighter of the Year in August, or what was it, the 1st or 2nd September, whatever it was. So last year it was in August. So yeah, I would think it's maybe calendar year, Big J, just so they can have it. I mean, it's really hard when you think about it to have this in December or January or February. A lot of people have got a lot going on, so it's really hard to do. So that would be my guess there, Big J, but that's all it is, a guess. I would think it's financial year. But as for the fighters themselves to be inducted, we're still a couple of years going back, so that's why they were able to decide that. All right, what else have we got there? James Daly, Benavides ducking Andre. Now, what's the latest on that, James? From last time I saw that fight was going to happen later in the year. Let me know if you've heard something that I haven't. Last I saw that fight was well and truly in the works. What have we got? Batman. All right, yes, I knew this one was coming. He's Liam Smith claiming he was injured, so his weight went high, but it's excuse, in my opinion. It's an excuse in your opinion. In the same way it was for Eubank in the first fight. Boxing is sometimes often on the night. Yeah, well, it is, Batman, and just ask any boxer out there, mate. None of us have ever lost a fight fairly. We've either been injured or trouble making weight, or someone cheated, or wasn't our night and we couldn't get going. We had issues in camp. There's always something. I just think Liam Smith was beaten by the better fighter. Now the odds are, it could be that's the case, that he was injured, so his weight went up. Whatever. Well, if that's the case, postpone it, delay it, do whatever. Big paydays involved as well, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. But I just think he was beaten by a better fighter, Batman. I just think Eubank prepared a lot better this time and just got the job done, which is what he should have done in the first fight. I think what happened on the weekend, I expected to happen first time round, so it's no surprise to me that it's happened this time. And that's what you get, Liam, for taking all my money in Las Vegas when I played poker with him and he cleaned me out. What else we got there? Andy. G'day, Andy. Hi, mate. Smash the like button. Yes, for sure, mate. Yep, if you haven't liked and subscribe. So we've got to get the numbers up. There has been some really good numbers viewing the videos, probably more so after the fact than on the night. I understand it's Monday night, there's all the footy shows and everything else. I get that, but our views after the fact have been pretty good. So for everyone again watching, thank you. Jules, it's a great question given we still have Tim set to unify in October, Big J. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's a really, really good question, actually, Big J. I hope I answered it correctly there. I might have to ask Damien Membry, how he's the secretary of the ANBF, how they actually work it. But that's the only thing that makes sense to me, because Jason fought in May, it was. So it's a long time when you think about it, another 7 months up our sleeves to find the fighter of the year. So, yeah, it's got to be a financial year. It has to be. Carl says, Igor's a character and a half. He is, mate. That's Tim Tszyu's trainer, of course, and uncle. He is. He's just one of those, typical old school sort of Russian type of guys. You don't sort of get much out of him. Very, very much a reluctant member of the team. He just goes about his business and lets Glenn do all the talking. But from what I've heard, he's an excellent coach. Of course, he's an excellent coach, training the boys, doing a great job. And he was there along for the ride with Costa as well. So obviously some great runs on the board. So he's a character too. I've only met him a couple of times when they fought in Bendigo, and sort of had some words with him at the fights and at the hotel afterwards, and that's about it. But from what I've heard, he's a real character. What have we got there? Big J. Canelo Benavides on Star Wars Day. May the 4th sells itself. It does, mate. Yeah, it's a good way to market it. It's a great weekend too. If you haven't been over there, not just Vegas but America, the Cinco de Mayo it's a great weekend. It's a Mexican holiday. I'm not quite sure exactly which one it is, because the mid-September one that they always tend to fight on as well, that would have been the case this time. I'm not sure what happened with the dates. But Canelo normally fights the second week of September, like Floyd did as well. And they're both Mexican holidays. Cinco de Mayo, I think it's just an excuse to drink margaritas all weekend. The Americans I'm talking about, I think they celebrate it more than the Mexicans do. It's lots of tacos and margaritas over the weekend, and tequila. But yeah, May the 4th, Big J. Yep, May the 4th with you. I'll go through. Dan, hi Lynden. Surprised the Smith versus Eubank fight was pay-per-view. Yeah, is that Australia you're talking about? I can understand it in the States. Dan, there's no way I was paying for it, mate. It was on at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning. There was no way I was going to pay for it. And yeah, I'm probably with you there on the pay-per-view, even if it was on at 11 o'clock in the morning, our time or whatever time. I think $30, I think it was, Dan. Look, it's not a lot to pay when you think about it, but still, I've seen better fights be free. And that might have had something to do with Sky Sports in England. We're not going to give it away to anyone. Was it Sky Sports, or was it a match DAZN? I'm not sure, mate. I'm pretty sure it might have been Sky, but had it been DAZN, we might have got it. Although they're now doing their own pay-per-views as well. But yeah, the main thing for me, Dan, was the fact that it was on 3 o'clock in the morning. I just got up and watched the highlights of it, and that was about it for me. So, especially when we pay $60 here in Australia. Oh, Batman, here we go. I was at the fight. The atmosphere was electric. That's awesome, mate. Well, how was it? How many people were there? You said the atmosphere was electric. I'd love to go to a big fight night over in England, Batman. I might do that one day. I go twice a year overseas to the boxing. It's always in Vegas or LA or whatever, but I would love to go to a big fight night in England. I do hear, though, that sometimes it's hard to get tickets over there. They sell out really quick, which is unbelievable to think that they get 50 or 60,000 people there and you've got to get in early to get tickets. But I'd love to go see Would it be AJ or Fury or one of those types of guys? I was really surprised, actually, Batman, that the Canelo John Ryder fight wasn't actually in England. I know Canelo always wanted to fight, or has always wanted to fight in England. I know Eddie Hearn wanted to get him over there for a big fight there. So I'm surprised that wasn't there. Of course, it was in Mexico instead. That was probably another bucket list thing for Canelo. But, yeah, so I would love to get over there, and I think I will. I might put it on the list that we go to England. The airfares are pretty good over there. The only thing that's putting me off a little bit, Batman, is the flight time. I know that's rich coming from an Australian that everywhere we go, it's a massive flight. But I have been to England twice when I fought over there, but it's a long, long ways, at 30 hours, whatever the hell it is, but maybe break it up with some flights over. But as I said, I think the flights there might be on a par with the States. So, yeah, mate, I will get there at some stage, but that's awesome you were there. What else have we got there? I'll go through the comments. Yeah, Big J Jules, exactly my point, plus Jason won a vacant title as well. Hang on, did I miss that? Did I miss that comment there? Where are we? Jules, was it? What did you say there, Jules? I'll go back to your comment there. I might have missed it. Anyway, fill me in there, guys. I'm sure there was a comment there that you've answered there. What do we got? Sorry, guys, I'll go down there. All right, Batman again. The boxing, that's the Carl. Yes, even the undercard was crazy. Bodies flying everywhere. Well, again, Batman, I didn't see the undercard. I just saw the main fight on YouTube. But, yeah, they put on a great fight. Who was the promoter? Was it Frank Warren, Batman? Let me know. I'll probably look it up while we're going. Let's see who the undercard was. I'll only be quick here, guys. I know I don't want to bore you there. I want to have a quick look at the card because I missed it all. Liam Beefy Smith. Where are we? Where's the event? And let us know the crowd there, Batman. All right, so it was. I'll move that light there. Matchmaker. It was promoter Benjamin Shalom. Okay, that boxer, is it? Looking at some of the fights there, I don't really recognise a lot of the names there, mate. I won't boys with it there, guys. But yeah, that was. Sometimes, yeah, you don't have to have big names on the undercard to have a good night of boxing there, mate. What else have we got there? There's my wife in the comments there. Yep, Tara. Yeah, Tara getting a creep on. Yep. All right, couldn't agree more. Dan Raphael is a toss spot. Yeah, he is. Look, I'll tell you a quick story about when we met him. We're at it was a Superfly tournament in LA. It was in Carson, the old Home Depot Center. I'm not quite sure what it's called these days, but it was the Home Depot Center, and it was the super flyweight show. There was the main event. It was a great card, by the way. Holy shit, I can't believe it was what it was. But while I'm going to bring it up. Because I don't want to get the card wrong. But it was the Superfly show. It was the second tournament, or second. It wasn't really a tournament. It was just a card. Where we're going to go back to 2000. Oh, there it is. There. All right. So the card was promoted by Top Rank. All right. The main event. I just got this light in the road. Sorry, guys. Actually, while I'm going to bring it up so you can see it. That's what I'll do. All right. Here we go. Hang on. I'll get that off there. All right, I'm going to get there. That was the card there. So the main fight was... I think that's the right one. Is that the right one? Maybe I've got that wrong. 2017. No, it was... sorry, guys, it was before that. All right, I reckon that was it there. 2017. All right, I think that's the one there. Yes, that's the one there. That's the fight night we went to. It was myself, the twins, Tony Tolge, and Ronnie Pickham. So you can see there, the main event was, now he's changed his name. That was the Thai. There's a Run Vac, or whatever his name was, just a killer. Knocked out Chocolatito Gonzalez. You can see there, Juan Francisco Estrada, Carlos Cuadras on the undercard, ripper fight. I think they actually Michael Buffer announced the wrong winner that night. They had to reverse it, so that was pandemonium. You see Naoya Inoue. Now, that was actually his... that's right, he did fight. So Naoya Inoue with the 6th-round stoppage of Antonio Nieves, and Brian Valoria there with the win over Miguel Cartagena. It was a massive, massive fight. But anyway, we're at the... I've lost my train of thought now. We're at the weigh-in. So we went to see the weigh-in, and we run into Dan Raphael coming down there. And the boys, we're all sort of, call him fans. We all knew who he was, of course. And the boys went up and said, "G'day, how are you, Dan?" and gave us nothing. Absolutely gave us donuts. As Ronnie Pickham would say, he gave us the spear. And, he said g'day, and I think he might have taken a quick photo, but could not care less. And from that day, I thought, you arrogant piece of shit. And considering now what the Twins have both done since that, well, that was September 2017, so obviously the boys have gone on to bigger and better things. But I remember thinking, mate, who the hell do you think you are? You're a fat boxing writer, and the stuff he writes is shit anyway, and you can't even give... Well, it doesn't even matter who the boys were. We're fans. We just wanted to say good day, and anyway, he gave us donuts. So anyway, I think he's a flog. There you go. And I don't value his opinion at all. All right, keep going. All right, Glenn says this is about Horn Pacquiao. Atlas was disgraceful with his post-fight comments. No excuses, mate. I'm with you. As I said before, he didn't have to say it, and I reckon if he had his time again, he would have bitten his tongue. Maybe said, well, I thought Manny Pacquiao won, and here's why, but that's not Teddy Atlas' style. Goes off on a tangent, just rants and raves and yells and screams and foams at the mouth, and just pretty much comes out with shit. But anyway. But Glenn, you're right there, mate. Disgraceful post-fight comments were shocking. All right, what do we got there? D-Style, I've talked to shop people that day. Dan's a dick in person. Well, there you go. I'm glad you... I've talked to a lot of people that say Dan's a dick in person. Yeah, just... D-Style, no, there's just no need for it. Now, no matter who we are or where... obviously you could tell we're foreigners, and the boys were really good. They said, g'day, Dan, whatever. Yeah, there you go, and walked off. And I don't think he even said see ya or anything. And I thought, who the hell do you think you are, mate? So there you go. Batman. Frank Warren said in regards to Dan's opinion on the Usyk clean/low blow. We're going to go over this again, mate. How would he know what a waistline was? Yeah, good call. I'm assuming that Dan actually said it was a clean blow. Frank Warren obviously disagreed. I'm not going to go too much into this, Batman. We're going to go over old ground because I think there's a few people said we went on that subject for too long last week. My reply sort of was to those people, hey, you guys dictate what we talk about, and all you guys wanted to talk about was that fight, which is why it took 45 minutes to go through. So if you tuned out because you were sick of us talking about it, I'm sorry, but you guys just kept talking about it, and it's your show, so I just comment. But, but that's interesting. But you're right there, Batman. He wouldn't know what a waistline was. All right, where are we? Carl says, I'd love for the Tim Tszyu versus Brian Mendoza fight to be at Suncorp Stadium. Well, that would be great, Carl. And that time of year, I'm assuming we were pretty good, October, because we went in, was it the first week of July? I think it was July the 2nd. So the middle of winter. Now, I've come from about 3 degrees in Melbourne and got sunburnt in Brisbane. So, had no hat or sunscreen. I got sunburnt sitting out in the sun. That would be awesome, Carl. And I would have no dramas with Queensland getting the fight, whether it's at Suncorp or maybe do it on the Gold Coast. But that time of year, a stadium fight outdoors would be pretty cool. And Suncorp Stadium, as I said earlier, is a really, really great venue for boxing because it's the obviously rugby league field, which is about half the size of an AFL field. So you feel like you're right on top of it. Whereas doing it at been to a couple of fights at Melbourne football grounds. I remember seeing Jeff Fennick, Azuma Nelson at Princes Park in Carlton, and the Cambosis Haney fight at Marvel Stadium. I've heard UFC fans say the same thing. They've had the basketball out there, same thing. It's just too big. But anyway, even with football, you're sometimes looking at what's going on. So that would be good, mate. But I have heard it might be Gold Coast or Melbourne. But yeah, if it's Suncorp Stadium, mate, either way, I'll be there for sure. Carl again. Dan Raphael is known as Octodong because you can't be that much of a puller. Pulling just one. I've got to read these comments. All right, D-Star. The worst thing that Dan Raphael ever said was he wished Briggs' beating at the hands of Vitali was worse, so he spent more time in the hospital. Yeah, I didn't say that, D-Star. That's shocking. And that again probably highlights, mate, that Dan Raphael has never put a boxing glove on in his life, and that's what I don't like. Probably the same as being an elite boxing coach. You at least have got to be in there. I'm not saying you got to be at the top level, but at least be in there and been around elite, coaches, trainers, gyms, or whatever I said before. Same as being a boxing writer. You got to sort of know what you're talking about. especially when you're writing for like ESPN and all those types of sites. So that's a really harsh thing to say, and that shows me that underlines what we've been talking about D-Style, because that's pretty piss poor. All right, Jules. Agree with you, Zygmunt. Max Reeves looked great. This is on the Wildfighter show. African versus Taylor, great fight. Fair play to African and his team of promoters for taking that fight. Big fish. Yeah, well, you're right. They wanted the Australian title. I thought that it might have been a bit early, Jules, although I thought African might have got through with with basic talent. But Joel Taylor is a tough guy, really, really hard. Look, nothing out there as far as skills goes, but he always comes prepared, always comes fit and hard, and he can punch hard too, and he's a real volume puncher. Not when he throws 5, 6, 7 punches at a time, like some of the volume punches does, but he's one of those guys that just doesn't stop punching. There's always a jab coming at you. There's always a right hand. There's always a hook, something coming at you all the time, and it takes you out of his comfort zone. And the fact that he can punch, makes him a really, really good fighter. D-Style, if Crawford moves up to fight Canelo, I think Tim versus Ramos 2024 could be the fight to make. Yeah, it could be, mate. Yeah, well, I haven't really thought about that one. I don't know. Well, who knows? I've just got a feeling, though, mate, that Tim, he wants the really big fights, and Ramos might, be champion or, whatever. You know a lot more about him than what I do, but I just think Tim... I think he'll want the winner of Spence Crawford, and it does make sense as well for both of those guys. Whoever wins, whether it be Spence or Crawford, to move through Tim, get that big fight on the way to fighting, whether it be 160 or straight to 168. Who knows? But but I think Ramos. I know Tim hasn't exactly, beaten a lot of those top line fighters yet either. So, but I just think he's got his eyes set on them. If he wins these titles, he's always obviously got the WBO. But if he wins the WBC as well, I think he wants one of those really big dogs, and then he would probably look at Ramos. So we'll see. Cole agrees. D-Style, 100%. Ramos is on the IBF title, and I think he'll get it. Yeah, well, unless maybe if there's unification at stake, maybe that's the case next year. But other than that, I think Tim looks to the Crawford-Spence winner. Or maybe he does go up and fight Canelo. Who knows? Would be a good fight too, Carl. I agree with Tim versus Ramos. Peter Nutt. How are you, Peter? Welcome to the show. Can Americans ever accept that outside of America and more... Hang on. What about... Can Americans ever accept that outside of America and more so African Americans, other countries have great fighters? They're pretty hard to please, Peter. You look at some of the comments on the forums. You've got to, you pretty much got to win 3 world titles to get their respect. And Tim, I must say, has got the respect because he's not only fought often, but he's fought good fighters, and he's been willing to fight the best fighters. So I think he's been accepted. Maybe D-Style and that can maybe comment a little bit further. But yeah, look, they don't give out respect easily, Peter. And I think the line comes out a lot. I think we might have even discussed it on the round table on D-Style's channel, that exact point. Why don't Americans accept non-American fighters as being elite? They always say you've got to come to America. Unless you've come to America and proven yourself you're not a great fighter. Well, says who? Jeff Fennick had one fight outside of Australia, and that was that. I don't blame him, by the way, because it was the first Tszyu Nelson fight. And got ripped blind, but he's now in the Hall of Fame. So, and has got universal respect. So, but anyway, they are hard to please, Peter. But I think that's what's good, though. I'm probably talking more so Aussie fighters. You speak to any of the great or the really good and up and coming and established Aussie fighters. They all want to prove themselves in America. Tim being the main one. George has obviously already done it. But even George, taking a lot of time. But getting that win over Tszyu over there, I think that did get the respect. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen George get absolutely mobbed over in the States, both in Las Vegas and in Oklahoma. They love him over there. He's got respect because he beat Teofimo Lopez on American soil. So, and that's why I think guys like Tim Tszyu want to get over there. Liam Wilson, very unlucky again, of course. Sam Goodman wants to get over there, etc., etc. So, they're tough to please, mate. Hayden, Brian Bomac McIntyre has been arrested by, Has been arrested by armed airport police at Manchester Airport after security found a loaded gun and ammunition in his suitcase. Well, that is another thing with Americans, Hayden. Not the sharpest tools in the shed sometimes. Why the hell would you have a loaded gun? Why would you need a gun in England, by the way, Bomac? I don't know what neighbourhood you come from, but England's, I know they have their problems, like we all do, but why would you need a loaded gun to go to England? We had it not recently as well with Devon Haney with a loaded gun. I don't know again what neighbourhood he was in, but the loaded gun in the back of his car. I don't know, but that's news to me, Hayden. Let's look at a little bit more into that. That's amazing. Liam Smith with D style was a waste of time for Tim right now. I agree, mate, 100%. Zygmunt. What was that? Always happy to pay to watch the smaller Aussie shows. They are well matched card like the Saturday night one. Yeah, yep. Let us know, Zygmunt. What was the card like? I heard it was really, really good. All right, Andy. Hasn't the rematch been activated for Bud Spence? Yes. Errol Spence has said that he wants the rematch, so it's officially been activated. I still can't seem to fathom that PBC Showtime will let Bud in over house fighters, Benavides or Jamal. Money talks, I suppose. Yeah, well, it does, mate. And look, credit to PBC and Showtime. They probably had some of the biggest fights this year. I mean, Crawford, Spence, Garcia and Davis, and now Canelo and Charlo. So, yeah, they probably had the three biggest fights of the year. So it's a credit to them because they've been treading water for a while. They're now going to have Bud Spence too, which will be the fourth biggest fight if it does take place by the end of the year. So, yeah, but you're right though, mate. Money 100% talks. And why they've got the hooks into Canelo. Be interested to see what happens if he loses to Charlo, whether they cut him loose or they hang on to him. Who knows? Yep, Glenn says the rematch has been activated. That's a very good question there, Kyle. Has it been confirmed it will be 154? I don't think they've got that far yet, Kyle, and I don't think there's been dates. I know Spence would like it but by the end of the year. I'm sure Crawford will want it before the end of the year. I did read somewhere by someone that said someone in the know, that they would hope that maybe Spence would take the rest of the year off and fight Crawford early next year. I think Crawford will be saying you either fight me this year or forget about it. So, because Crawford, I mean, when did they fight? What is it now? Was it, when was it? July, wasn't it? June? July? Whatever it was. I was there. You'd think I know. What is it now? September? It was in July. So Crawford, you would think would want to fight one more time before the end of the year. So, but if any of you guys have heard anything, put it up there. But as far as I know, there's been no date or weight set yet. All it is that Spencer said he wants a rematch. So, yep, Glenn, there you go. Not confirmed at 154, but more than likely it will be. I think it will be. All right, what's that there, Carl? He's my best mate now. We've sorted that Nonito Donaire stuff out. Or should I say Alexander Santiago did. Who's that in regards to, mate? I missed that one. Who's that to? Anyway, let us know. All right, Andy says, if Bud Spence rematch at 154, 147 belts shouldn't show their faces because defeats the purpose, in your opinion. Yeah, is that about giving up the belt to Andy? I think once they go, they go. I don't think Terence Crawford is that attached to the belts as such. Obviously, he's the undisputed champion. I think he's now looking, obviously, for his legacy fights now for when he retires in a year or two. So I think he'll have no dramas giving up the 147. Who fights for those belts? You think Boots Ennis will probably be one of them, of course. But who else? But I'm interested to see what they do with the belts, whether they hang on, well, whether he says he'll hang on to them. As I said, I don't think he will. I think he'll let them go and move on there. But we'll see. Zygmunt, what do you got there, mate? Daniel Gear will always be one of my favourite fighters of all time. After he won the world title in Germany against Sylvester, he had his first two title defences down here in Tassie. I went both times. That's awesome, mate. Yeah, and just a real gentleman. He spoke really well, I will say, Daniel Gill. Been in a good paddock, I will say, Zygmunt. A little bit over the welterweight limit, but look like, and look, he's well and truly earned it. Because looking at him, I really admire him because he doesn't really get spoken a lot about when we speak about the great Australian fighters. I think I had him in my top 10 of all time. I just think winning in Germany, was it twice? He beat Sturm over there as well. Beat Mundine. I thought he won the first fight as well, but then really took Anthony to town in the second fight. Just a really, really underrated fighter. I know later in his career, Kodo and Triple G sort of messed him up a little bit. But look, I think and I think he beat Barker as well. I didn't think Barker beat him, but anyway, that's another story. But just a really humble, down to earth guy, and yeah, just a great fighter, Zygmunt. What else have we got there? We'll keep going through them. We've got about 10 minutes to go. Big J, Lynden with the Hall of Fame glove just handed over, and all will be good. I think everyone will agree it's a correct course of action. Well, I reckon there might be a few that might argue with that, Big J, but we'll think of something anyway. I'll bring the glove out next week and give you a look. But there's 5 or 6 signatures on it anyway, and I thought it'd be good to do a giveaway every now and then. And it helps the Hall of Fame as well because the money goes towards them as well. They do great things, so no dramas handing over the money for that. But we will think of something. Big J, if you guys have got any suggestions, and let us know. Peter Nutt, what do you got there, mate? Maybe Tszyu could step up to 160 and beat the shit out of Eubank. That would be a great fight. That would be a really, really good fight. Peter, that's not as silly as, well, it's not silly as it sounds. I think that's a good fight. I think maybe that if Tim wins, of course, against Mendoza and can't get a Crawford or Spence or Canelo or Charlo, whoever it might be, that's a great fight. That's a really, really good fight for him. I would love to see that. And especially if it was in England as well. I think over here in Australia would be massive as well, but especially in England, of course, everyone knows and loves Costa Tszyu. He's obviously got, as Tim's dad, of course, with the Ricky Hatton background. So can Tim go over there and get a little bit of revenge on the Englishman against another son of a gun in Eubank? That's a massive fight, Peter. D-Style, Buddy McGirt, probably one of the very good fighters. That is a good trainer. Yeah, good call, man. I'd probably put that comment out there, not probably thinking too much about it. And a great guy as well. I met him in Oklahoma when I was there for George Cambosa's fight. Really, really nice guy, Buddy. And I loved him as well. Probably a bit unfortunate to run. Did he run into Meldrick Taylor and did he fight? And Whitaker as well, I think it was. But he had some great fights and wins during his career as well. But Buddy McGirt, a real underrated champion as well. Well, he's probably not underrated, a great champion. Going through the comments there. McGirt trains his fighters to the strengths instead of that one style template. Probably makes him so successful. Well, that's the true definition, Andy, of a great trainer. They don't treat you maybe like the way they used to fight, or have a cookie cutter approach where all their fighters fight the same way. A great trainer taps into their fighters' strengths and let them, fight to their strengths, and that makes them a good. There's so many different things that make a good trainer. You can't sort of list them all here, but one of those things is exactly that, Andy. Recognizing their strengths, making them better, and then hoping, well, that's enough, and then it's up to the opposition fighter to combat their strengths rather than the weakness. So so I agree with you there, mate. Did Triple G duck Lara at his prime? I don't think so, mate. I don't think he ducked anybody. Jules says, has anyone figured out where Tszyu Mendoza fight will be? Gold Coast? Yeah, those who said, mate, not sure about that one. Jamal versus Plant would sell okay with all the drama lovers. No, yeah, I'm not real excited about that fight, Andy, to be honest, but I'm sure there'll be people out there that'll pay for it. Jamal versus Plant should happen after the man slapped out him. Oh, geez. Yeah, he won't live that one down, will he? What was better, Plant and Jamal, or Will Smith and Chris Rock? Andy says Lara just isn't a big fight anymore. Well, he's got his hands full with Marcus Rafa, doesn't he, maybe? Not a big enough fight for Triple G, I agree. More risk for versus reward. Yep, I agree, mate. D-Style says, if Canelo beats Jamal as well, that would be a third set of brothers he's beaten. Yeah, his career, Cotto's, Smiths, and then Charlo's. That's a good point, mate. That's a very, very good trivia question. Well, Carl, you got the inside goss, mate. Keep it coming. This is what we're here for. Glenn, you don't agree with me? Canelo loses to Benavides? Yep, I think the other way, but certainly not going to argue with you, mate. That's all good. Andy, Benavides versus Andrade will likely be sold as the undefeated ex-champs Canelo ducked to build up for Canelo versus winner. Come on, mate. As I said, I don't think he ducked those guys. Well, Andrade's not a big fight for him. Benavides certainly is, but as I said earlier, I just think he's biding his time, so we'll see. North London. Who is this guy at Aussie? The only decent boxer Australia had was Joseph Parker. It was actually a Kiwi, North London. And Fury brainwashed him and took to Manchester to be his sparring partner. Well, he's a Kiwi in North London. And yes, I'm an Aussie, and we've had many, many, many decent boxers there. So I'm not even going to continue on with that comment. Boo Boo is the best 35-year-old prospect on the planet. Yeah, he's been around a while, mate. Certainly has. Andrade is too expensive for what he brings to the table. Yeah, I agree, mate. If it happens to versus Benavides, will be pay-per-view there, and no one is buying it. Yeah, well, is it a big fight? I think that's why I said earlier, mate. I don't know whether you agree. I think that's why they're giving it a little bit of time just to simmer a little bit, and hopefully Benavides can build his profile, because we all know him as fight fans, but the general public out there don't know a lot about him, so they need to build his profile. Maybe another thing is to maybe have him on the undercard of Canelo. He won't want to do that, of course, but that would be a thing to maybe get his exposure a little bit more out there and build the fight up. End of the day, Canelo will sell that fight by himself, but I think that's what they wanted, a little bit more profile of Benavides. What have we got there? James Daly. I've heard that Andrade had to sign with PBC to make the Benavides fight happen. Now that he's a PBC fighter, Benavides derails negotiations. Yeah, well, they've got the hand, haven't they, James, with PBC, like the Canelo and Crawford. They want to make these big fights happen where you sign up for them, and then they have options and everything else. So I think it's not a bad thing for Andrade to sign with PBC. I mean, they're putting on the best fights at the moment, so why not? Mexican Independence Day is bigger, isn't it, D-Style? I think it is, Carl, but D-Style will be able to answer that. I think Cinco de Mayo is just a big piss-up, as I said. I think it is. They don't give a toss about Cinco de Mayo in Mexico, real talk. That's what I thought. I thought just the Americans and us tourists go over there and use an excuse to go to Vegas and get blind. Andy, he agrees with D-Style. Jamal needs a tune-up bout. No doubt, yeah, 100%. Benavides versus Andrade, still quality fights. Win, lose, or draw, it answers questions, and the winner would deserve that Canelo lotto ticket. Yep, good point there, Andy. D-Style says Cinco de Mayo is just a holiday when Mexicans beat French in a battle. Separate date is independence from Spain, no comparison. Okay, thanks for shedding light on that there, mate. I did wonder what Cinco de Mayo was about. I had a feeling I knew that Independence Day was the second week of September, and that's what they celebrate, which is probably the more celebrated one. As I said, Cinco de Mayo, I think, is a more non-Mexican holiday more than anything. We've got a couple more questions before we go there, guys. What have we got? North London, we'll give you another comment there. 3 boxes of Canelo for years, could not beat him. Then Eddie Hearn had the idea to promote Canelo, and then it doesn't matter who wins, as Eddie always gets the money. Yes, he certainly does. D-Style, everyone beats the French in wars. Not much to brag about. Hope there's no French people on here. We might get past all the wars and all that sort of stuff. D-Style says to Andy, across the border once on Cinco de Mayo, and it was just a regular day over in Juarez, Mexico. I've actually heard that, D-Style, that the Mexicans, yeah, whatever. It's just a piss up for the what they call them, the gringos over in America. Yeah. Either way, mate, I think it's just good to be there and have the focus on Mexico for the week. I've been to Las Vegas that many times for Cinco de Mayo. It's a really, really good week. So I think they also have the Kentucky Derby that weekend as well. It's just a really, really good week. What's your latest on the 135 division? Who and when? I'm not quite sure what's happening at the moment there, DJ. I'll look into that, mate. Hopefully, might have some news for you next week. But a lot of rumours getting around, of course, because we've been talking about Loma and George. I have heard a rumour that George and Loma will fight for the IBF belt, and I can't remember who it was. It was with the the IBF rankings. What was his name? I'll bring it up now while we're going. Where is it? Oh, hang on. We've had movement at 135. What is going on? Oh, the IBF. Gustavo Lemos, that's what I'm thinking of. Came in obviously heavy in his last fight or the last weigh-in attempt or whatever it was. I've heard a feeling or a rumour that they're going to drop Lemos down the rankings, which would open the door for Kambosos versus Lomachenko for the IBF belt. But so I have to get Noonan Boy on here. He knows everything going on. He probably won't tell me anyway because he's part of Team Kambosos, but that's what I'm sort of hearing around the traps. That could be for the IBF belt, and it could be in Australia, so we'll see. All right, what do we got? I'm going to we'll almost call it a night here, guys. I think you guys are talking amongst yourselves there. The IBF. Let's quickly go to this week's fight, guys, before we go. Sorry, I missed I miss going. I don't want to lose this one. I'm gonna go over it quickly. So there's the card there. All the best to Floyd Masson this weekend. He fights Yves Nagbu, 21-2 for the IBO World Cruiserweight title. All the best to him on the Ace Boxing card. You can see there Benjamin Kelleher fighting Luke Medini. That'll be a really, really good fight. Benjamin Kelleher 16-5-2. Luke Medini 9-0. Should be a good fight. Adrian Rodriguez always comes to fight. He's up against Lewis Chadwick over 6 rounds. That Kelleher Medini fight's over 10 as well. Jalen Tate 13-0. Really, really good young prospect here in Australia. He'll fight Jalensi 12-3-3, and a couple of Taylor Robinson 8-1, fighting Harma Iesti 1-1-1. Hard for her to get fights, so she'll be fighting there. And what's the other one there? Bryce Hegarty, Clinton Elliott in the other fight there. So all the best to Floyd Masson in his IBO title defense this weekend. Really looking forward to that one. Check out social media for the streaming services. I'm sorry I haven't got the details now. I forgot. But, yeah, all the best there. What do you don't like that, Carl? Can't believe that his Nagbu is getting a world title shot against Masson. His last 4 fights, lost 2, including a KO loss, a no contest, and only 1 win. Last 2 fights, a split decision loss and the no contest. Well, let's have a look at him. There it is there. So 21-2. Yeah, okay. So lost his last fight, 10-round decision. That was in May. The no contest there. Won a fight there. Look, and lost to Lawrence Okoli, of course. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure with that Big J. But, yeah, look, I don't know. I don't even try and pretend to know what goes on with the sanctioning bodies these days, guys. So, anyway. All right, a couple of more comments and we'll leave it there. Lynden did cross paths with Zaraf on Saturday. Any word on his title shot this year? I did see him there, Jules. I did sort of cross paths with him, but I didn't get to speak with him. He did speak on the podium. And apparently what he said is that Lara and Garcia are fighting in October or November. He's looking to be on the undercard. There's been no word on the Lara Garcia fight. There was no really word when they pulled the pin or pulled the rug out. So I don't know what's happening with that still. Let me know if you know. But what he said on the weekend was October, November. Lara and Garcia will fight for that WBA belt, and he's hoping to be on the undercard of that. And of course, the 2 winners will fight for the belt next year. I still don't. What do we got there? Hang on. What do we got there? I'll go back to that comment. I missed a couple there. But yeah, so that's all he said there. Jules didn't give away too much. I still cannot understand. Apparently, he got $40,000 to stand aside or step aside. I cannot still get my head around why he would step aside for that amount of money when you've got a guaranteed world title shot. Now, if it was 140, I'd be saying, yep, no drama. But look what happened. Missed out on his shot. There's still nothing concrete about Lara and Garcia, so he could be sitting on the shelf. They might not fight till early next year, or mid next year, who knows? He's sitting there, so I don't agree with it because that 40 grand that he got, if he had fought and won the world title, well, he could have probably put a 2 in front of it, and it would have been 240,000 for his first title defense. So anyway, he's got the powers to be in his ear, telling him what to do or instructing him what to do. So, but that's what he said on the weekend, mate. Now, I think I did miss a comment there, did I? I'll go down the comments and see if I've missed it. If not, hang on. About Zarafa. Michael Zarafa's favourite song, To the Left, To the Left. Yeah. D-Style. I'll read out that comment if I can't find it. It's hard to pinpoint American fight fans into one box. There's just so many tiers of casuals and hardcore, but the circles I'm in, and most of my subs are definitely sold on Tim. Yeah, well, that's the thing. If you watch D-Style's show, they call it the way it is. They'll give respect where it is, where it's due, and they have been big supporters of Tim Tszyu. All right, I'm going to read out this comment because I can't find it. What's his Sparkling Fob? Hey, I've been watching your podcast since Tony versus Tim and always meant to hop on your live stream one day. Keep up your work. Also, have you uploaded last week's podcast to Spotify? I think you comment on last week's episode. Look, for all you that actually do listen to on Spotify later, I'm having issues. I don't know what's going on. The way it works is I have a software program. I copy the link into it. It does the MP3 version, so the audio version. Then I can upload that to another site, and it's worked all along. Now, for some reason, it just will not work. So I'm still trying their sparkling fob. Still trying, mate. We'll see how we go. Hopefully, I'll have a bit more luck. But I do appreciate you listening in, mate. But yeah, I'm going to have to maybe get a different type of software, because this one, I tried about 20 other YouTube videos from all other random sites all over. They all downloaded or uploaded, no drama. But for some reason, my own videos do not download to MP3. So I'm working on it, mate. Andy, a good call there, mate. A bit late, but happy Father's Day, fellas, for yesterday. Thanks very much, mate. Hope you all had a good one like I did. Yeah, that's great, Andy. And I know there's a lot of fathers out there that it's actually a hard day on them for different reasons. So a shout out to all you out there as well. I'm one of the fortunate ones that had my boys wish me a happy birthday and gave me a nice card and a bag full of lots of chocolates and lollies and everything else. So that was good. But yeah, no, it's a good day. And as I said, a shout out to all the fathers out there that aren't as lucky for one reason or another. I hope you had some sort of good day anyway. So, guys, I think that is about it. I'll let you guys chat amongst yourselves. There's a few comments still coming on there, but oh, there it is. There's the comment. So, I'm just a little bit behind the time here. North London, thanks for joining the show, mate. I'm not sure whether you've been on here before, but I'll let you debate with the other boys in the chat there. Apologies if I've talked a little bit too long on certain subjects, but I'll let you guys continue on in the chat. We might continue on with a few more there. I will say that one there, D-Style. That's an interesting one. I can't stand Zarafa. Lol, I just look at him and can't stand him. Like a lot of Aussie boxing fans, but I shouldn't laugh, by the way, because he gets in there and prepares and fights and puts his life on the line every way. But that is every fight. But that is a common thread with D-Style. I can't put my head get my head around why D-Style. I can't really put my finger on why, but he just polarizes a lot of fans. Sounds like over there as well, but in Australia, yeah, I don't know why, but he's probably the most hated fighter in Australia that I can remember. And as I said, maybe because Tim's so popular, but yeah. But if you meet the guy D-Style, what I will say, he's a lovely guy, do anything for you, but it's just something about him that rubs people up the wrong way. What's the other comment? There's the ref ain't beating any top 10 guy, in my opinion. Yeah, well, that remains to be seen, I suppose. And Minnesota, Mick, Lara versus Garcia ain't happening. Well, mate, I've got to agree with you. Nothing's been said about it. So, yeah, I don't know. Tim, as I said before, Michael said towards the end of the year, but at this stage, I can't, especially October. What's that next month? Can't see it happening. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. I'll let you guys, as I said, talk out amongst yourselves. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. I love coming on here every week. I wish we had more than an hour and a half. The other thing is I've got a few things I've got to sort of do my own thing on a Monday night, a few things to do and relax and everything else. But so I'll try and limit it to an hour and a half. We might even, who knows, start at half an hour earlier and go for 2 hours. I could talk all night with you, with all you out there. But again, really appreciate you all logging in and either watching live or listening later on Spotify. I will do my best there, guys, to put it up on Spotify. But if not, we'll see what I'll get another program. So till then, I'll see you then. Make sure you check out the Hall of Fame video that I've put in the link a little bit earlier. And till next Monday, have a good week, and we'll see you then.